Torah is just a long string of numbers. Some say that it's a code sent to us from God.
That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's just kid stuff. Check this out, okay? The word for the Garden of Eden, Kedem. Numerical translation, 144. Now the value of tree of knowledge, all right, in the garden, right? Eitz HaChaim, 233. 144, 233. And you can take those numbers. So the,
you know, like the Fibonacci sequence?
Fibonacci.
Fibonacci is an Italian mathematician in the 13th century. If you divide 144 into 233, the result approaches theta.
Theta?
Theta. The Greek symbol. Golden ratio, golden spiral.
Wow. I never saw that before. That's like that series you find in nature? Like the face of a sunflower?
Wherever the spirals.
You see this math everywhere.
Welcome back to the Gnostic Informant, and you are about to attain true gnosis. And joining me today is the man, the myth, and the legend. And I just got a super chat that just dropped in. Appreciate you guys can light me up all night. We're totally fine with that. Dr. Robert M. Price.
Tracy Femstall, 9 cents super chat.
Great to be here.
Good to see you, man. So we already had a couple of super chats dropping off the bat, and I can't wait to get to them. I just want to start. I want to set the tone a little bit before we just jump into those. Constellation's already dropping supers on us, so I'll make sure that Bob gets his fair share of this stream after we're done, like I always do. You know, I always look at it to see how much I got. I just give Bob half usually, something like that. I'll estimate how much YouTube will take out, and then I'll cut it in half. That's what I usually do. So. This is Bob's stream as much as it is mine. Now, I do want to make the stream about the myth of Christ, because even if we can argue about if it's a myth in the beginning or if it's a guy, but I want to put that question aside for now. Maybe he's a guy, maybe he's not. What I want to talk about is over time he becomes more mythological. This is just scholarly consensus. So even if whether you're a mythicist or historicist, we're putting that origin question aside for today. We can talk about that as well if you have super chat on that. Totally fine. But what I want to talk about is once you start getting into the 2nd century, 3rd century, 4th century, 5th century, Christ takes on a completely different form. He becomes more godly, more perfect, more is equal to the Father, the doctrine of the Trinity, which is a 4th century doctrine, and it evolves over time. But you also have this 3rd century religious fad, or if you want to call it a cultural development in the Roman Empire across these cultures, was this solar theology. And so Christ, believe it or not, Christ takes on solar aspects. Let me see if I can have get my, where was my, maybe I didn't have that on here. Oh, here we go. So this is a 3rd century mosaic that people thought might have been Sol Invictus, because it's Sol Invictus. It's got the 4 white horses and the 7 rays. Can you see my mouse right now? Right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now, if you know your pagan mythology, if you know your Greek magical papyri, if you know your Helios hymn, you will know that this is in fact That's exactly what Sol Invictus or Helios is, the seven-rayed god. I can show dozens of iconography and images and paintings and mosaics and statues of Helios or Sol Invictus or even Mithras as the seven-rayed god. So Christ becomes the Son of Righteousness, not S-O-N, the S-U-N of righteousness. So my thumbnail is not clickbait. He does become a sun, a solar god in the 3rd century. You also have the presence of the vine leaves, showing the Dionysian imagery. He's the Dionysian solar god of the 3rd century. What do you think about that, Dr. Bob?
Yeah, it's very interesting to me as to whether this is influence from these solar deities who were very important. I mean, you didn't have to look them up in some encyclopedia in the ancient world. Everybody knew about them and worshiped them and so forth. So it seems reasonable if one were to suggest, well, this was the way they looked at divinity, and the more Jesus is considered truly and genuinely divine, the more solar he becomes. But then on the other hand, there are earlier elements in the Gospels that seem to be presupposed that like Acharya S. and others have always pointed out, the solar theology / mythology, where you've got Jesus as like Moses on the Mount of Transfiguration, his face shining like the sun in Matthew. In all the Gospels, you've got him surrounded by 12 disciples who really have very little distinctive identity. It's just the fact, never explained, why they are 12. And this makes you think about Hercules or Heracles, who was originally a sun god and had the 12 labors, which had to do with the sun passing through the 12 houses of the zodiac. And so people said for a good while that, boy, this is very early stuff, almost pre-Christian Christianity. Now, what's happened? Have people just been caused to dig that back up, or has it been transmitted through the first few centuries as a minor note, but in light of the prominence of solar mythology, they begin to revive that? I don't know if it's possible to know, but it certainly is not simply some kind of pagan admixture. Not that I think that would be bad or discrediting or debunking or anything. It's just a question ultimately of how are people viewing God or Christ in a different way at different times. But there are these fundamental, very early solar images in connection with Jesus. Similarly with, also with a huge background in the Old Testament, right? Because it seems really beyond doubt that already Enoch, Moses, Elijah, Isaac, and I think Samson were already supposed to be the sun. And in a widespread pattern of, you might say, progressive demythologizing, you can observe how at first the most ancient layer is to personify the forces of nature so that you can think you're bargaining with them. Sol Invictus, Apollo, give us a good day for our picnic. I mean, we still do that in churches. And then they began to demote them a bit to personal gods, and then to demigods who lived on Earth but were like superheroes in comic books, Hercules, for instance. And is the same thing true of these seeming solar patriarchs and saints in the Old Testament? And when I don't mean to just affirm that or assert that, when you look at the various important stories about the Old Testament figures like Enoch, what little are we told about Enoch? That he lived for 365 years, hint, hint, when everybody else in the genealogy much longer than that. And what happened to him? He rose up into heaven like the sun does every day and walked with God across the firmament like the sun does. Or then Samson, the guy's name is simply the word for the sun, like the god Shamash in Babylon. Same word, really.
And this is what the Platonists talk about. The Platonists believe in the one, but they also talk about how when God is represented to us on earth, we think of the sun as this representation. So you can almost imagine if you're inspired by Platonism and you're writing these stories, you're going to put solar imitation into the characters. That's how you do it. That's how Platonism is done. The sun is the representation of God's emanation to all life on earth. It's a representation of God. It's the one. It's the monad. It's the one thing you see in the sky every day. And it takes away all the stars that night. They're all gone. They all bow to the sun. That's basically what's going on. The sun is the solar monad.
And he rules the day like the moon rules the night. That's personifying language. And that person turns out to be named Moses, Enoch. I love the fact that Moses is in the tent of meeting, receiving new laws all the time from Yahweh. And he comes out and his face is gleaming and shining. Well, what does that remind you of? It's just like one of the Psalms, I think Psalm 19, where it says the sun runs his course like a bridegroom emerging from the bridal chamber, and so forth. And then it launches into the glories of the Torah commandments, because like Apollo and like Shamash, Yahweh as a sun god dispensed sacred laws. And then Jesus in Matthew is depicted as a new Moses. And what does he do? Matthew is organized like a new Torah. He's got a new Pentateuch of 5 blocks of Jesus' teaching. Like, it's hard to imagine these guys who are closer to all this stuff than we are didn't intend that you were to see these parallels. And so how literally did they take them? Like, did Mithras worshippers, how many of them understood, well, by Mithras, I mean the sun, which we celebrate because it gives us life and heat and all that? Or did they think, no, there was a guy who was the avatar, the incarnation of the sun? We don't know. There's not enough discussion about that. But it's certainly...
And there's not enough attention. There's not enough attention on how often we find inscriptions dedicated to Sol Invictus Mithras, or Sol Invicta Mithrae in the certain tense that's vocative, and so people want to say there's 2 different things going on: Mithras and Sol Invictus. We shouldn't. They're 2 different things. Don't separate or don't combine the 2. You're gonna no. But actually, my experience and my research has shown. Yes, you're right. There are a lot of instances where Mithras and Sol are depicted together as sometimes looking like twins, sometimes just 2 different figures. But I'd say more often than not, Sol Invictus Mithras is one giant monad or dyad or whatever you want to call it of a character. And believe it or not, when the famous Philocalus calendar, the one that has Sol Invictus's birthday on it, people don't even know. No one's ever read this before because they always go, "Oh, it's got Sol Invictus's birthday on it," and they're like, "Oh, cool." It actually doesn't say that. It says the birthday of the invincible one. It doesn't say Sol at all. So the invincible one, who's that? It could be Mithras. It could be Sol. It could be both. Some even say, "Well, maybe it's Jesus too." You know what I mean? Because at that time you were starting to get the syncretism of the Constantinian type of Roman religion. So it could have been just some unnamed invincible god that represents all the gods at once. Anyways,
like Constantine himself was both the head of the church and the Pontifex Maximus of the cult of the invincible sun. You can't imagine that they didn't have it cross their mind that maybe these are 2 names for the same deity.
That's what Plutarch says. The job of the Pontifex Maximus is to be a spiritual bridge builder. Building bridges between these cults. The name Ponts in Latin means bridge. So Constantine, ironically, was actually doing his job, his religious duty of building bridges, legalizing the Christians, which he didn't know it was going to be the demise of the Roman imperial cult. He had no idea. His nephew figured it out, Julian, and then by the time 70 years goes by, Constantine's long dead. He has no idea what he just did. He unleashed havoc on the Roman Empire. Anyways, the point I'm trying to make is, yes, you're right. Constellation Pegasus dropped $99. I really appreciate Constellation Pegasus. He says, time for bed. Can Price get this? And I'm assuming he's talking about his super chat where he dropped 20, which is just, dude, you don't have to do all that. Thank you, though. Matthew 26:64. Did what Jesus would happen fail? Sure looks like it to me. And it's talking about this passage. Can you see this right now? Do you know what he's talking about?
Where's my darn glasses? Oh boy, I had them a second ago. Maybe the devil got
I can zoom in a little more too.
What the heck?
Yeah, I can zoom in a little bit more. 64 right here. Can you see this?
I'm really losing my.
I can read it. Let me just read it to you.
Yeah.
All right. It says, and Jesus said to him, "You have said it yourself. But I tell you, from now on, you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of power and coming on the clouds of heaven." That's a very Platonist thing with the dunameos. That's the Platonists literally call it the second power, the dunameos. Like that's what they call the second God, the logos. And then it says, then the high priest tore his robes and said, "He has blasphemed. What further do we need witness? See, now you have not heard the blasphemy." Now Constellation is wondering, is this a failed prophecy? Is he really the second? Are we seeing him in heaven as the second power? Is that what's going on? I think he might be right.
Yeah, I guess I'm still captive to the traditional and critical opinion that he means the enthronement of the one like a son of man next to the Ancient of Days in Daniel chapter 7. But that's right, in the heavens. If you can ask yourself, as I have many times, what do Christians mean when they say Jesus is seated at the right hand of God? Does he still have a posterior? Is he sitting in some chair somewhere, maybe on Jupiter or something? I mean, what is this supposed to even symbolize? Well, if it had a direct astronomical reference, that sounds a little less ridiculous. But I've never even heard this associated with the sun. That makes a lot of sense in its own way. Yeah,
and as Constellation points out, if it's a real fulfilled prophecy, then it says he literally says, from now on you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of power, coming on the clouds of heaven. Has anyone saw that happen? No one saw that happen. That's just some made up flowery language that Matthew is using. It never happened. So I think Constellation has a point here. How could you ever think this is a fulfilled prophecy? Yeah. So thank you for that super chat, and you are literally the best in the world. Love you. Tracy Femstar says, "Is Christ the Son?" And this is to go back to what we were just saying, because we were basically getting at there's this idea that these not just the New Testament, but even the Old Testament the writers are seeming to adding solar imagery to the characters, even Bacchic imagery too. Like Israel is a vine, Jacob is a vine. That's very Dionysian. And and then he's got 12 tribes that are like branches of the vine that come from Jacob. That's very and his name Yaakov. You know the Greek Iakos for Dionysus. You've heard that name before, right? Iakos. Yeah, Yakos. I mean, we're talking about an Indo-European language versus a Semitic language, so it's hard to make that connection. I can see why no one really talks about that as much. But come on. It's the same. It's almost the same word except for the suffix at the end. Yakos, Yaakov, and they're both vines. So I'm just like pointing out, even Rebecca, the name Rebecca, has that almost. You almost want to get like Rebecca. Like, is there something weird going on in that part of the Genesis when you get to Jacob and Esau. And Esau reminds me of Pentheus. He's the firstborn. He's the one who's supposed to be the heir to the kingdom of Cadmus in the Bacchae. He's the goody two shoes. He's the good one, right? And then Jacob is like the more, he's the divine one, the chosen one, who usurps Esau and becomes the heir. This is what happens with Dionysus, Bacchus, Iacchos. He usurps Pentheus and becomes the heir to Cadmus's kingdom. He takes what is rightfully his that Zeus granted him.
Yeah, so, I take the business about what are we talking about? Esau and Isaac. If I got the right two, I was
Isaac and Ishmael, and then you're talking about Esau and Jacob.
Yes,
I do. I do the same thing all the time. I do the same thing all the time. That's a common mistake. Yeah.
We're told, we very seldom read physical descriptions of any biblical character. So when we do, in those rare cases, you have to figure, hold on, somebody's giving me a clue here. And what do we read about these two guys? It says that Jacob is a smooth man and Esau is a hairy man. And what should be Esau's blessing by right is, as you say, usurped by the smooth man, Jacob. Well, the scholars have, this is not really in fashion anymore, I think for no good reason, though, that this is really talking about the ever-repeating cycle of the moon displacing the sun as dominant in the sky, but then losing that place as soon as the sun rises. The thing with Halal, the son of Shahar, the dawn goddess, in Isaiah chapter 14 is about the same thing. Only it's the planet Venus, but it's the same basic thing. It's the bright and morning star. And while the sun has not yet come up, Venus is the brightest object you can see. But as soon as the sun rises, hey, what happened to Venus? And again, the same thing is true with Elijah and Elisha. We're told that Elijah was a hairy man in 2 Kings chapter 1. And we're told a little later that Elisha, his successor, is bald. Now, why do we never hear one or the other about anybody else in the Old Testament? Well, it's because this is a big hint that we're talking about the constant changeover between the sun and the moon as its successor. And so there's this astrotheology at the basis of a lot of these myths. Even the two she-bears in a story that you never hear preached on in church. When they, hey, Chrome Dome, and he says, you little bastards, and sends these two she-bears on him to tear him to pieces. What is going on there? Well, even in the ancient world, they thought of those two constellations as the greater and lesser bears, right? And it all has to do with some kind of astronomical allegory, a tradition that continues way over into the New Testament, beyond the gospel references we talked about, into the book of Revelation, which, as what's his name? The book. Genre and message of the book of Revelation. I'm blanking out on the guy's name. I can't believe it. But he shows by reference to numerous surviving ancient astronomy/astrology manuals that the book of Revelation symbolism is almost overtly astronomical references, and it harmonized easily with certain Bible characters. So it's not like this was an alien invasion of foreign matter. It's
Yeah.
all over the place. And so the problem is the biblical historian is kind of like the early taxonomists, and with Darwin and Wallace and all that, trying to figure out these things seem to have something to do with each other, but which was first, which influenced which, and that's where the speculation inevitably comes in. But it seems to me that the speculation, the strongest one, is to say that, like all theistic religions, it was a matter of naturalizing and then personifying the forces of nature, whether on earth or in the sky.
Yeah, and just on this last, before I go to the next super chat, just on this last thing, I wanted to share this before Constellation jumped in. So this 7 rays thing, right? They're depicting Christ literally with vine imagery, so Dionysian and solar imagery. He's becoming more of a synchronistic deity in the 3rd century. Well, what's interesting about this is that when we actually look at images of Sol or Helios or even Mithras, any of them, what you find is they also have 7 rays. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can see that one's cut off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are all from antiquity, by the way. None of these are these are all from 3rd century, 2nd century. This is like 150 AD right here. This one right here. Let me see. I'll show you. Hold on. I hate when it does that. I hate when you click on a link and it just doesn't follow you over. It's so annoying. Where is it? Where did that one go? Okay, here it is. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This one right here. Also, this one right here is dated to, let's see. This one is dated to 150. See, this is super. So early on, you have this imagery of Sol Invictus, or even sometimes Mithras with 7 rays. It's very common to find that. It doesn't always have 7 rays. Sometimes it has 12 rays, but like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That one has 6. That's interesting. That was Christ again. There. So, anyways, the point, you see what I'm saying. There's a whole bunch of them, but and then you have Julian, the apostate, literally calling on his God, calling him the 7-rayed God, the soul, like the invincible God called the 7-rayed God. So there's obviously something going on where Christ is competing with the Mithraic, Sol Invictus, solar theology that's booming in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th century. So is Christ the Son? He becomes, and they even call him the Son of Righteousness.
Yeah,
that's the title he gets.
Yeah, it's too bad that that they're, what is it? Not homonyms, but homophones or something. The 2 words sound identical, but that misleads people into thinking they mean the same thing. SON and SUN. So you always have to give that verbal footnote saying, now, sun in the sky, not begotten.
Yeah, and they actually draw it from, like you pointed out brilliantly, how this stuff actually has its roots in the Old Testament as well. So Malachi, what is it? Malachi 4. Let me see if I can find it right now. Malachi 4. Let me see. And I think it's verse. Yes, here it is right here. It says, yes, I found it. Look, Malachi 4. But you who fear my name, the Son of Righteousness. And you can see if you pull up like a Greek version of it, because they'd be using the Septuagint. So I'm not, who cares what the original says? We're going with what the Christians would be reading, which would be the Septuagint. And it would say, like they're literally reading Helios, dikaiosune. So like son of DK Helios, those 2 gods, DK and Helios. There's 2 gods right there. You know what I mean? The righteous son, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, by the way, YEHSEUS right here, YEHSEUS. This is, so they're obviously reading this into Jesus. You want to know why? Because the name of Jesus, believe it or not, and this is going to come around pretty full circle in a second. The name of Jesus, actually, if you go to the Hold on. I can't believe I didn't have this ready to go. My bad on this. I'm a little sloppy here, but okay, here we go. The name of Jesus, let me share my screen, has that prefix yea. See, YEHSEUS, the word yea has to do with healing. Yah or yea. We just saw that in Malachi, where it says he calls him a yater, a healer, or YEHSEUS in the Ionic dialect. See, Ionic dialect? YEHSEUS. That's literally Jesus' name. Yea. Ter is a stem. So you have like soter, mater, pater. That's a stem. It means like you're a doer of that thing. So a doer of healing is what? Well, let's see what they define it as. A doctor. Jesus is a doctor and a healer, and his name literally has yea in the name. That's like perfect coincidences for them to make him into a healer god, right? That's in the Gospels. So you might even think the name is constructed in that sense. You can probably make the argument that way, that the name was chosen that way. Or the other option is his name. There really was a guy named Jesus, and because his name was YEHSEUS, they go, okay, he's also a healer too, because he's got the name of salvation in his name. Let's make him live up to his name. That's a possibility too.
In fact, in the Gospels, when the verb sozo is used, it's not clear except by the context, if then, whether it's saying heal or save, because it was the same word.
Yes.
The Savior, the healer.
Yes, exactly. Good point in Matthew. And you know what? This reminded me of something that just happened recently. Oh, I forgot to mention one more big thing. I talked about this on my last stream, but I wanted to show you this, Bob. So, believe it or not, I just showed you YEHSEUS, right? Do you know what this is right here? You know what this is? You're not going to know. You just say no. I don't know. This is the Orphic hymn to Asclepius. And guess what the first thing they call him is?
YEHSEUS.
YEHSEUS. That's the first word off the Orphic hymn to yea. You are the yea. You are the doer of yea. You are the YEHSEUS, the doctor or the healer, whatever you want to call it. So it's interesting that Jesus and Asclepius both are tied to this yea concept. Panton means of all. Doctor of all, or healer of all, or savior of all, whatever you want to call it. Asclepiae in the vocative. So
he's healing everybody left and right all through the gospel.
He's the YEHSEUS. And then Jesus is the new YEHSEUS. He's the better YEHSEUS. See what's going on? There is a mythological competition going on between Jesus and the Greco-Roman pantheon. One more thing I want to show on this topic right here, because believe it or not, recently there's been some commotion in the political world where Trump shared.
I knew that was coming. Yeah.
Yeah, we got to talk about this, right? Okay. So this is a MAGA fan right here. He's going, look how powerful this statement is. I'm like, oh God, whatever, man. And this guy's another MAGA guy going, come on, dude, this is bullshit. We shouldn't be promoting this. He's literally calling himself Jesus. Well, believe it or not, Trump came out and said in an interview, I wasn't trying to be Jesus. I was trying to be a doctor. But so I'm the only person in the world who probably started dying laughing, because doctor is in Greek is YEHSEUS. So he's trying to be Jesus. He's trying to be YEHSEUS. And then he goes, no. I'm trying to be YEHSEUS, not YEHSEUS. I'm trying to be YEHSEUS. See what I'm saying? So that's a Gnostic informant joke. That's the inside joke right there.
Yeah, but you have to. It's almost like Jungian synchronicity. The one somehow sheds light on the other. That is like he's speaking more truly than he knew. But that is great. I mean, that the coincidence of like what he says is a joke, and it functions as one, but
it functions as a perfect.
He knows it's like a pun, kind of.
Yeah, he doesn't realize if you translated his statement into ancient Greek. I'm not sure if modern Greek uses the word yea anymore. Maybe I think they have a different word for healing. Maybe they don't. Doesn't matter. But the point is, if you took Donald Trump's transcript and you translate it into ancient Greek, you would hear him going, I'm not trying to be YEHSEUS, I'm trying to be Yeter.
Yeah.
It would come off as a perfect pun, dude.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. It's awesome. Anyways.
Now, that reminds me of something not exactly related, but somehow it fits. In the strangest place, the book, The Aquarian Gospel of Jesus the Christ, which was supposed to be like a channeled revelation decades ago. This guy Levi Dowling wrote it, and he said that he got this from the Akashic records, and it's got Jesus after his baptism by John going to Tibet and Persia and so on, and learning all this other stuff. And then at the crucifixion, the really fascinating thing is when Jesus calls out, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani, and they say, hey, let's wait and see if Elijah shows up, and the sun goes dark. Well, in the Aquarian Gospel, he made the connection. He's calling on Elijah, but he's calling on Helios, the sun, to resume shining. I thought, son of a gun, I never would have thought of that. I say it doesn't seem like it could be, but I can't help thinking the guy's on to something. Somehow it seems to fit in some obscure way with this thing that Elijah, who was a sun god, and Jesus and the whole thing in Helios fits. Very, very bizarre. Somebody ought to do a dissertation on that.
Well, here I'll tell you what. If you're going to do a dissertation, this is what you should do, because. Here we go. So that original quote comes from Psalm 22, where let me share the screen, because this is actually something that Amon Hillman gets into, which I'm going to actually grant him some. I think he might be correct on some of this, but let me just first tell you why he's wrong. So back in pan, I'll pull you back up in a second. So so Amon Hillman thinks that the Eloi lama sabachthani is from the PGM. It's not. It's from Psalm 22. And I'm not even, forget about the Hebrew, forget about the, actually, you know what? We should pull up, we should have the Hebrew on here too. Let me add another Bible. Let me add a third Bible, which will be Hebrew Westminster Codex. Okay. So we can see where he says, my God, where is it? My God, why have you forsaken me? Right? And then so in the Greek, his hotheos. Why is this thing popping up like that? Okay, hotheos, mu, proskes, moi. Right, my God, why have you forsaken me? Right, and so he's singing a psalm. He's singing Psalm 22. Well, what's interesting about that is right here. Where is it? Here, let me just take the Greek off for a second. This thing gets annoying when you try to line these up. So you can see it right here. Eloi, Ali, Lama. Where is it? Here it is. Ali, Lama, Sabachthani. Right there. If you can read Hebrew, if anyone can read Hebrew, they just saw what I just did right there. Right here in the original Hebrew for Psalm 22, you literally have Aleph, Lamed, Yod, Aleph, Lamed, Yod. So it's Ali, Lama, LMH. I'm just transliterating it for you guys. That's L, that's M, that's H. Allah, Lama, and then they have I, Sabachthani. So you have literally the words in the Greek in Mark and Matthew are actually coming from the Hebrew side, but it's being kind of tweaked a little bit through the Aramaic version, through an Aramaic gloss. But it's the same words. Allah, So that's where it comes from. So that's game over. We know where it comes from. You can't say it's from the PGM. PGM's way later. But I do want to say this though. I want to throw a little bit of a bone to the Ammonites, because in the PGM, it looks like they are also drawing from this speech. Because in all these hymns to Helios that you just pointed out, they're constantly calling on this god Eloal, Elohil, Sabaoth, and you can see like all over the text. You could see. Let me see if I can find another one. Eloah. Let me see if I can find. Here we go. Right. Look at this. This is it. Look at this. This is literally a hymn to what is it? Abraxas. The names written Yao, Sabaoth, Adonai, Eloi. So there's the Eloi right there. There's the Sabaoth right there. Now let's see if I can find another one. Let me see if I can find another one right now. Where'd it go? Oh, this is the glossary. The point, yeah. See, you can see Eloi says pop comes up all over the place in the PGM. Yao Sabaoth. So I guess what I'm saying is I can see this being some sort of pun in the New Testament, where the New Testament author is acknowledging the origins of Psalm 22, but also making Psalm 22 into a magical incantation.
Yes,
right. So I think that's what's going on. But you got to be clear. You got to know these nuances. You can't just make up these random theories that everyone's just going to laugh at you because they're going to go Psalm 22, bro. You're wrong. You got to incorporate the nuances when you make. I'm trying to help out the Ammonites here. If you're going to make these theories, you got to include the nuances. You know what I mean?
This is slightly off the subject, but irresistibly so. Neil, do you have any plans for graduate studies and PhD studies and so forth?
You know, I think about it all the time. I'm in my 30s now, so it'd be kind of odd going back to school. I mean, I do have technically.
No way.
Yeah.
You know more than loads. I mean, you'd have such a head start. I was in my 30s when I went into my New Testament PhD program. You deserve, I mean, you are so far ahead in all this stuff, the way you juggle all these different texts and so forth. I'm amazed, and I just want to see you get the official recognition. It'd really be a crime if you did.
I seriously appreciate that coming from you, someone who has 2 PhDs and who's been doing this for 30, 40 years now. Seriously, I really appreciate that. And I'm writing publications right now. I'm actually writing a book right now. I have 90,000 words. 90,000 words are already done in the bag. So I'm still writing it. So I'm thinking it might hit the book might hit up to 100,000 words, which would be like 400, 500 pages.
Wow.
It's a book about the development of Judaism and Christianity. The topic we're talking right now is one of the major topics of the book.
That's good.
The question of the book is, how does something like Christianity that came out of Judaism, that came out of Judea, become the state religion of the entire Western? How could that happen? And I answer the question. I show you how it happens step by step. It's not miraculous. It's actually very understandable, especially when you understand what happened in the 3rd century. The whole Roman Empire was destroyed. The crisis of the 3rd century. People say 476 or 1453. Which one is it? I say you're both wrong. It's 235. 235 is when the entire Roman Empire goes bankrupt, and the Western realm splits off into a Gallic Empire. The Eastern realm splits off to the Palamarine Empire, and it's a total mess. Wow. There's no more aristocracy anymore. It's all military rank. It's all equestrian people taking over the empire by taking over the military. There's no more. Like it's all a mess. And what happens as a result of that is there's a demand for a type of religion that calls out for everybody, that's unifying, that's bottom up instead of top down, an egalitarian religion, which is Christianity. The old aristocracy religions were not cutting it anymore because there is no aristocracy anymore. It's all military and plebs now. So anyways, I talk about that. That's my book. I get into how Christians use paganism to their own, how they take pagan elements and Christianize them, how they reform temples, how they turn saints, they turn gods into saint cults, like Demetrius, for example. Saint Demetrius His name, what does his name mean? Demeter's son, Demetrius. And guess what? In the St. Demetrius' story, he gets visited by Demeter. And Demeter tells him, stop worshiping me. I'm just a little old daimon. Don't worship me. Worship Christ. The old age is over. The new age is here now.
Wow.
So
Never
there's
heard
tons of examples like that happening in the third, especially late 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th century. Tons of examples like that.
Wow.
It's propaganda.
That's great. As
Very
even
strong
what their own prophets have said.
Yeah.
Titus. Wow.
Bakken Pan Danibus is in the house, one of the great friends of the channel. Says Christ becomes Sol Invictus as the imperial court becomes the emperor and the church. Constantine is Pontifex Maximus of Sol. His statue raised 50 feet. Absolutely. What do you think about that?
Oh man, yeah, that seems to point of definitely in one direction. Sheesh.
I mean, what do you think about the whole Constantine? What was he? What do you think he was trying to do versus what actually happened? What do you, if you can bring yourself back to 320, 325 AD, what do you think someone like Constantine, what is he trying to do?
Well, I can't help but wonder if he deep down thought he was the second coming of Christ. Now, apparently, he didn't. There's no statement about that. But he gathered the relics of the 12 apostles, supposedly, and had each of them displayed on a catafalque or whatever you call it, some sort of display platform like a clock. And right in the middle was his reserved slab. And not Jesus, because of course his body wouldn't be available anyway, but Constantine. Was he trying to say that he is the returned Christ? Because he's become the head of the Roman Empire and legalized Christianity. You have to wonder. I mean, other people must have thought the same thing. I don't know. I don't know the actual data on that, but he didn't make it the state religion. I believe that was Theodosius soon after, but still he made it legitimate.
He raised it up. He raised it up to the equal level of the other pagan cults. And not only that, he gave unlimited, according to Jill Harris's book, Lay Antiquity, I think it's called. It basically covers everything from like 250 to like 450 AD. It's like something like that. Jill Harris's book from Oxford. She says that Constantine not only did he legalize and lift the persecutions, but he started giving these bishops unlimited money to build churches. And there was like dozens of churches built in that 4th century period. So he gave them a lot of power.
And he persecuted various heresies. And
yes.
I've read that this initiated a Christian persecution of pagans and heretics. It was far worse in numbers than any official Roman pre-Constantinian persecution of Christians. And there's this book, what is it? A Darkening Age, I think. I forget.
Yeah, I have the book here.
That's really frightening.
Yeah, that's a good book, by the way.
Yeah.
Catherine Nixie.
Yeah. Right. That's it.
Yeah.
Whoa,
anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, she depicts it as if you had the crazed Shiites of Iran taken over. And that may not be a facetious comparison. Or she doesn't put it that way, I don't think. But you can't help but think of that when she talks about all the horrific things monks, especially these holy men, did, descending upon pagan holy sites and defacing and destroying them. And it's like, how can you guys think of the gospel of Jesus and think this is what he would have you do? It's just amazing how zeal becomes fanaticism.
Yeah, and by the way, the solar trends seem to happen during the Julio-Claudian dynasty. I think you can even go back to when Nero was emperor. And here, I have a clip from one of my videos that I want to play real quick, if you don't mind.
Please.
Thank you, Pan, for this. I'm actually going to one up you on Constantine as Pontifex Maximus of Sol. I'm going to say that this idea goes back to the 1st century. Watch this. This is for my video called "The Last 300 Years of Pagan Rome." Oh, someone just dropped a super chat. Let me just mute myself. Thank you for that.
Nero's heliacal and Apollonian aspirations were evident in a colossal 35-meter high statue representing the sun with Nero's face within a vest.
Notice, count the rays. It's 7.
Yep.
I just told you that.
Yeah.
High statue representing the sun with Nero's face within a vestibule of his golden house, designed as a solar palace. Mithraism had already penetrated Rome and the imperial cult. If Pliny's mention of magic banquets indeed paralleled Mithraic rites, this would imply that the mysteries of Mithras had evolved among the Parthians, given that Tiridates was the brother of King Vologeses. These banquets may have been tied to Persian coronation rituals described by Plutarch, where the Magi officiated and required sovereigns to partake in symbolic foods like figs, cakes, terebinth, and whey. Nero, being hailed as Mithras, likely stemmed from the emperor conferring on Tiridates the consecration of royal power, which Mithras still symbolized. Corbulo's campaigns played a key role in the spread of Mithraism, as homage from the Arsacid rulers to Caesar may have facilitated Mithras' integration into the Roman army. Recruits from Galatia, Cappadocia, and legions stationed in Armenia, regions deeply connected to Mithras, were instrumental. In 71 or 72, the 15th Legion was transferred to Carnuntum, a move with significant religious implications along the Danube. A centurion of foreign descent, known as Barbarus, is.
I'm just trying to point out that in that first century period, in that late first century period, there was some sort of Mithraic, heliacal, solar theological revolution happening, and a great. This is from Statius, Publius Papinus Statius. He's one of the great poets of the Flavian period. So this is from like status like 90, 95 in that period. And the Thebaid is actually a familiar title from Greek epics and plays. It goes back to Homer. There actually was a Thebaid by Homer that we lost. So you have Homer's Iliad, you had Homer's Odyssey, you had a prologue, and then you had an epilogue, and those were called what were those? Those were called I have them over here, so I should be able to find them real quick. Anyways, the point is, there was like 7 books attributed to Homer. One of them was called the Thebaid, and we lost it. But Statius wrote the Latin version of it, so we have the story. Believe it or not, right at the end of book 1, he calls upon this god, this invincible god. You know what he says? He says, "O guardian of hospitality, attend the right-hand side of Juno's fields. Be present, love us, make us fortunate. Whether, as in the rituals of Persia, we call you rosy red Titan," which is a solar epithet of the Titan god, the father of Helios, which is what's his name?
Hyperion.
Hyperion. Yeah, he's a Titan. So it's a solar. He's already saying it's already a solar god. He said, we call you in Persia, we call you rosy red Titan, or in Egypt, bountiful Osiris, or you shape yourself he who twists the horns of the bulls in Perseus' rocky caverns, holy Mithras. So this is a 90 AD, roughly 90 AD, where you already have a synchronistic deity who's called Osiris, the sun, Hyperion or Titan or whatever, and Mithras. And it even describes him twisting the horns of the bull. So it's the bull iconography. You know how people say, "Oh, that's later. That's 2nd century and later." No, right? It's in Statius in 90 AD. So
even the thing in Luke where Jesus is born in a manger, actually the Greek could as easily be translated on the ground, on the open ground, like Mithras. So it's possible
it's even worse. It's even better than that. Mangers. Ask any scholar of antiquity who studies particular subject of like mangers. They will say 99% of the time they were in caves. That's how when you build a manger, what you do is you find an opening of a cave that would support some animals because it's a nice enclosure, and then you close it off with and you make a manger out of it. So first century Bethlehem. If you were born in a manger, you were born in a cave.
Wow!
And anyone in the first century reading would have known this. They would have immediately thought cave.
Hmm.
So
Jerome lived for a while.
Epaphras is born in a cave. Mithras is born in a cave. Jesus is born in a cave. Pretty ubiquitous.
Yeah, that should tell you something important, but mere coincidence.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
So okay, that's the last super chat. We finished that one. Then we got Bach and Pan Dionysus again. Constantine pursued the desposity, the royal blood. Yeah. He went at, and there's some what is it called? In Jill Harris's book, it talks about when Constantine's sons visited Rome after like decades of not being there. They were in different cities for a long time. When his two sons visited Rome, they got booed by the crowd. The aristocracy in Rome the Christianity didn't take over Rome yet. Christianity in that period was mostly in the East. So if you went to Antioch, Syria, you're going to see Christians everywhere. If you went to Jerusalem, there'd be Christians everywhere. Even Constantinople probably had a lot of Christians. But in Rome, 4th century, it's not really that. There's still mostly pagans there. So when Constantine's sons visited Rome, Jill Harris talks about this. They got booed. They got stuff thrown at them while they're doing their procession. People did not like them because they were funding Christians. They were helping out the Christians. People did not like that.
Wow.
And it's mostly the aristocracy that's behind this. The aristocracy was anti-Christian, and the plebs were pro-Christian mostly. So that's how it is.
Fascinating. Wow.
So,
by the way, I finally remembered the name of the scholar that interprets Revelation with regard to the contemporary astrological symbolism. It's Bruce J. Malina, Malina. That book, I think it's the genre and message of the book of Revelation. It's really an eye opener in terms of what the heck is going on in that book.
Yeah, I just wanted to just ask ChatGPT real quick. I said, were first century mangers in caves? And it just says, answer is yes. First century Levant, it was extremely common for mangers to be located inside caves or grottos, rather than the standalone wooden barns popularized by Western manger scenes. And it says, number one, the geography of the Judean hill country. The region of Bethlehem, composed primarily of soft limestone. This geography naturally creates thousands of small caves. For first century inhabitants, building a home meant utilizing the landscape. First century manger would have looked like stone basin. Mangers were almost always carved directly out of limestone walls of the cave, of where freestanding blocks of stone hollowed out a hold fodder. These stone troughs would be located in the lower cave section of the house where the animals were kept. Justin Martyr, 150 AD, writing a few generations later, 150 AD, explicitly states that Jesus was born in a cave near the village of Bethlehem. Proto-Evangelium of James, 2nd century AD. This Christian text reinforces the cave narrative. Origen, Jerome. Both early Christian scholars mention specific cave in Bethlehem that was pointed out by locals to be the site of the birth. So my point is, everyone knew this. Everyone was like, oh, he was born in a cave. So the idea that, scholars today will go, well, it doesn't say it was a cave, so you can't connect it to Mithras. Well, that's funny because you're not understanding the context of what a manger is when we are. You're just not getting it.
Fascinating. You convinced me. Wow, that's really great.
Justin Martyr says it, man. I love Justin Martyr. He gives us a lot of gems like that.
Oh yeah.
You know, believe it or not, according to Jerome, 400, like I think he wrote like 400 AD or something like that, 300s AD, I think something like that. He says the place where Christ was born was originally a grotto dedicated to Adonis and Venus. So he says the place where Christ first cried, his first cry as a child, was the same place where Venus wept over Adonis.
Whoa, boy.
That's in Jerome, dude. That's Jerome. Saint Jerome, baby.
Wow. Amazing.
So
great.
I'm trying to think. Anything else we got going? We're caught up on super chats, so. Someone says Trump is a doctor. He's a yeter. So, what are your thoughts on everything so far?
Oh, well, I find that there's a lot of stuff in there I've not heard of before, and I'm glad to be taught. But it certainly fits with everything I know and think about early Christianity. It really reinforces and explicates a lot of what I've thought of as well. So I appreciate the lessons here. Really good. And again, it just shows what you ought to be doing.
I'm working on that book. I'm working on that book right now. So maybe after I finish the book, if I get it published and it catches some attention, maybe I'll think about doing something like taking online classes or something like that. You know, it's something you're right. Like people today, they don't take you seriously if you don't have a PhD. And I think that's a shame. I think you should be judged on the work you do. Now, I will say this. If someone doesn't have a PhD or a master's and they're just spewing complete nonsense that's going against all the scholarly consensuses, I'm just going to say, dude, sorry, I'm not listening to you. And that's just the way it is. But if you're constantly, if you're like, for example, Russell Gamerkin didn't have a PhD, and he's putting out books that were peer reviewed through publications that do really high level peer reviewed stuff. You know, Routledge is top line. You know what I mean? So you don't have to have a PhD to get my attention. Another one, these books right here. These are all Robert Strassler editions. You probably can't see them. Hold on, let me just. There's just right here, Robert Strassler, Julius Caesar, Arian, Alexander, Xenophon, Herodotus, and Thucydides. These are all translations of ancient Greek texts. He has no PhD either. He was one of the greatest scholars that put together a whole. He translated all a bunch of texts. He got a bunch of scholars together to help him work on it. He was a real scholar with no PhD. He just started traveling to Greece, and he started falling in love with Greece, and then he decided he wanted to start digging into the scholarship. So you don't have. So there are examples of people who just don't get a PhD; they just jump into it. It's not common. It's not common.
People used to criticize Earl Doherty. We don't need to take him seriously. He doesn't have a PhD. And I always said, read his book. That's his PhD. That's his degree. It's just the stupidest, most superficial thing that if somebody really thinks. So, yeah, you got to have that sheepskin because are you suggesting that's just like a fishing license or something? It's just so stupid. You have to look at the work they've done. That's what matters. It doesn't become more convincing because they have a few letters after their name.
I agree.
Nor if they do, does that make what they say automatically cogent? Far from it, I'd say.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think a lot of times people with PhDs, they get overly confident. And that, like, you know, I'll just say it. Like, I'll just give it, like, when I put my money where my mouth is. Like Bart Ehrman, for example. I think when we talk about Bart Ehrman as a textual critic scholar, there's no one better. He's world class when it comes to textual criticism. Now, he might be a little bit dated because I know some people who are into textual criticism who say his work has been surpassed in recent times. We've gone beyond some of the stuff that but in his time, great like textual critic. Misquoting Jesus is one of the greatest books. Everyone should read it. because it shows you how these different manuscripts in the Christian tradition disagree with each other. One of the prime examples is the last 11 passages, the last 11 verses in Mark are not even in the oldest manuscripts. They're just made up. Well, okay, Bart was great when it comes to that stuff. As soon as he starts talking about paganism and dying and rising gods and Hercules and Diogenes or Alexander, whatever, he just, dude, stop it. Your nail's on a chalkboard. We can tell you don't know what you're talking about. It's so obvious. Anyone who has a little bit of understanding, when they hear you talk about this stuff, it's so fucking cringy.
Yeah,
Dan McClellan, the same way. I'm sure he knows all about the Hebrew Bible. Great, cool. You got your PhD in that. As soon as you start talking about pagan stuff, you have no idea what you're doing. You have no idea. You're completely clueless. It's so obvious for anyone who's listening to you. Stop. Next time somebody makes a video and tweets at you about pagan stuff, just ignore it. You're not helping anybody, dude. So, but yeah. Go ahead.
James Barr, in his great book Fundamentalism, I think 1977, he said there he really demolished what he called maximal conservatism, where you had people like Donald Guthrie and R.T. France, a whole lot of these guys, very, very erudite. They had read everything, true scholars, no question. And yet, if you notice, if you take the trouble to notice, every time they come out on the side of the traditional view of historicity or whatever, and it's like...
Welcome to Strike Gently. We sell woven blankets.
You there?
We have over 80 different blankets.
I said, no, isn't that something? That's all I said.
They're all 100% woven.
Welcome to Strike Gently. We sell woven
Go ahead.
blankets.
I wasn't
I can hear some commercial going.
Oh, I'm sorry. You hear something right now? You're still there?
It's okay. Yeah. And Barr said similarly, like, how do you get this way? And he said, well, if you notice, often new evangelicals with a PhD in New Testament have really specialized in an adjacent field that doesn't challenge their faith, like textual criticism, he points out. And you could do the same thing with ancient sociology or with exegesis. Like, I once asked Clark Pennock, who became a friend of mine, a brilliant man and an evangelical theologian, used to be an apologist for inerrancy, and he really had guts and was surprisingly open-minded and got into big trouble with the Evangelical Theological Society and so on. Well, I asked him, I know you got a PhD under F.F. Bruce. I hope this isn't an insulting question, but did you ever have occasion to read Strauss's Life of Jesus critically examined? And he said, no. And to me, that is just an outrage that you wouldn't have to, that you would, in a graduate program in New Testament, have to be conversant with major monuments of biblical criticism. How could you not have read Strauss and various other ones and claim that you know the field, which is what you're claiming if you say you got a PhD? And he was in a what they call a plausibility structure, a peer group, which placed no value on that and negated it as worthless. And so, to the best of his lights, he was covering the waterfront, but it was he didn't realize the parochial character of it. And that's, I think, and Bart was when he was studying textual criticism, he was, I believe, still an evangelical, student of the saintly Bruce Metzger, who I had a course with once at Princeton Seminary, also a brilliant man and very pious, but certainly parochial in his vision. And I think that's one reason, that's where you get all of the apologists from. They know their stuff, but it is their stuff. They don't necessarily have any friendly attitude toward all the relevant people they should know. Yeah.
I agree with you 100%. Like, if you're going to talk about historicity of Jesus, you should know Bruno Bauer. You should know the mythicist arguments from the German scholars from the 19th and 20th century. You should know what they say. You should know Levi Strauss, as you pointed out. You should know what's the other big one? Schmidt, or what is it? Something, you know what I'm talking about?
New Testament scholar?
Schneider? Yeah. Who wrote the Historicity of Jesus book, the whatever. You should know those books, though. You know what I'm talking about? He wrote the Quest for the Historical Jesus, I think it's called. Something
Albert
like that.
Schweitzer, yes.
Schweitzer. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, if you're going to talk about Historicity of Jesus, you should know Albert Schweitzer. You should know Levi Strauss. You should know Bruno Bauer. You should know all the sides of all the arguments before you just come along and say, I'm the expert in this subject.
Yeah.
I read Bart Ehrman, so I know.
Yeah.
You know?
Once I remember reading how the apologist Francis Schaeffer made just a side comment on the Quest of the Historical Jesus, which Albert Schweitzer brought to a close. And I thought, I don't think you understand what Schweitzer was doing. It sounded to me like that Schaeffer had read people saying that Schweitzer had shown the futility of the 18th and 19th century's attempts to define the historical Jesus, and said it's time for a different paradigm. But Schaeffer seemed to think he had shot the whole thing out of shooting skeet, and we don't have to worry about that anymore. I don't think you get what he's saying at all. I can't imagine he ever read Schweitzer. And of course, that wasn't his thing anyway. But if you appeal to something, you should at least understand what they're saying.
Yeah. So, whoops, not that. I wanted to bring up Bruno Bauer real quick, since we're talking about mythicism and stuff, because he's the one who they're all responding to. He wrote this in 1877 in Berlin. There's a super chat that just popped up.
At Stephen Phillips 8,792 dropped $5 Canadian.
Thank you, Stephen.
The true biblical narrative of the NT is the Gentiles of the NT were Hellenized/paganized ethnic Israelites, as per 1 Corinthians 10:1-2.
Yeah, the narrative of the New Testament is the Gentiles of the New Testament were Hellenized, pagan, ethnic Israelites. As one, let's go to that. Let's pull up 1 Corinthians.
I think that's the Israel-only version of preterism that says that Gentiles have no role. I mean, ethnic Gentiles, the nations, have no role in the Christian plan of salvation. That the Great Commission to go to the nations just meant diaspora Jews, and it's a very, very strained, axe-grinding interpretation of the New Testament that I think just does not hold up. It's like one guy said, Walter Bjork, who used to do a Bible question show on the radio, he said, he's talking about the pre-tribulation rapture, and he said, every theory has holes in it, but this one is all whole. And I'd say that's true about this.
Wow. Well, since we're on the super chat, I just want to read it real quick. He says, he said verses 1 through 2, right? Yes. 1 Corinthians 10 verses 1 through 2, which is I'm looking at right now. For I do not want you to be unaware, brothers and sisters, that our fathers were all under the cloud, and they all passed through the sea. Interesting. And they were all baptized into Moses and in the cloud and in the sea. Interesting. This is one of those. I haven't thought much about these passages very much. And they all ate the same spiritual food, and they drank the same spiritual drink, for they were drinking from a spiritual rock which followed them, and the rock was Christ. So I guess he's making an argument that these people are Hellenized Jews in some way.
Yeah, that's just it's a way to interpret it, but you can't defend that in light of the rest of the text he's quoting, because it's obvious that you have like in Romans, you have the argument against supersessionism, that some Gentile Christians were saying, well, there's so much for the Jews, they had their chance and they bungled the whole thing. It's ours now. And Romans says, hey, not so fast. You're grafted into the fig tree of Israel, so their heritage is yours now, but God will take care of them in due time. So this seems to me to assume that like in Galatians, again, the seed of Abraham is anyone who believes in Jesus, as Abraham believed God's promise. And so I think this is being plucked out of context, as if he's talking about some sort of genetic testing thing. And if you look deeply enough, you'll find out that all of the Hellenized Greek-speaking Christians were really ethnic Jews. That's just, in light of everything else, it's exceedingly improbable.
Yeah, and it's not to say that a lot of the first Christians weren't mostly Jews. We're not saying that.
Yeah.
We're saying that the idea that they're all of them, like there was no Gentile convert. There was Gentile converts to Judaism in this time period. So you're going to have Gentile converts. So one of the things, though, that's the same passage. I wanted to share something in Romans that I think might be related to this. In Romans 9, Paul is talking about this whole Gentile Jew dichotomy going on in the early church, and he says, and so he did make his own known riches upon his glory, which he prepared before the glory, namely, who he also called not only from among Jews, but also from among Gentiles, and the word is ethnon, from the ethnics, from the nations, or whatever you want to call it. Right. He says, I will call those who were not my people, and her who has not beloved, beloved. Right? And it says that she and it shall be that in the place where it was said to them, you are not my people, there they shall be called sons of the living God. Theo zontes. Isaiah cries out through Israel, though the number of the sons of Israel may be like the sand of the sea, only the remnant will be saved. For the Lord will execute his word on the earth thoroughly and quickly. And just as Isaiah foretold, if the Lord of the armies, or Lord of hosts, Kurios Sabaoth, Lord of Sabaoth, there's that word again, that's from the PGM. If Kurios Sabaoth had not left descendants, we would have become like Sodom and Gomorrah. And what shall then we say? The Gentiles who did not pursue righteousness, diakonta, attained righteousness, but the righteousness that is by pistis. However, Israel, pursuing a law of righteousness, did not arrive at that law. Why? Because they did not pursue it by faith. So, okay, what's going on here? He's talking about this idea that if you want to be part of Israel, you want to be part of Zion, it's not about the law. It's not about your bloodline. It's about faith in Christ. So there is this idea, there's a spiritual Israel going on. It's a new Israel. It's a spiritual Israel. It's a universal Israel. They don't care if you're Jewish. They don't care if you're Gentile. They want everyone to be part of it. Mm-hmm. You got to be clear on that. We can talk about the origins. We can talk about the creators of Christianity being Jews. Fine. But the point is, once it takes off, it becomes a religion for everybody. Yeah. It's not just for, you know what I mean? You got to be clear about that.
Yeah, Ephesians says the great wall between Jews and Gentiles has been torn down like the Berlin Wall, right? And now they're one people if they believe in Christ and so on. This is just a really axe grinding kind of theory that I think is futile to argue for or against.
50 pounds.
Yeah.
Hey Neil, and
50 pounds.
Price. First super chat here. Thanks to you. Derek, Dr. McDonald, Dr. Carrier, etc. for sparking my curiosity.
Quick question.
Who really was Flavius Josephus? His odd passages, Pauline, Decius Moon, etc. Puzzle me. Your thoughts.
Thank you for the 50-pound super chat. That's a big one right there.
Whoa.
He says, thank you, Dr. Price. Thank you, Dr. McDonald, Derek, Dr. Carrier. Who was Flavius Josephus? His odd passages, Pauline, Decius Mundus, puzzle me. Your thoughts, Dr. Bob?
Well, he was a devout Jew and certainly knew his Bible back and forth. He claims in Antiquities of the Jews that he's simply going to summarize the scriptures, not add or subtract anything. But then he does everything but that, and retells it and paraphrases it. But even that shows how conversant he was with Scripture. He knew it backward and forward so that he could put it in his own words and so on. Well, the idea that some have that he was a Christian, like Whiston, the I guess the first English translator of Josephus's works, he thought Josephus was a Christian because of the Testimonium Flavianum, where he said he fulfilled all these predictions, and accordingly he was the Christ. Well, there you go. But of course, as you know, there's always been a huge debate whether Josephus wrote that, as seems highly unlikely, since his life depended on claiming that Vespasian was the Messiah, and so forth. But if you don't say that, then the next theory over would be the Roman provenance theory in different forms. Joseph Atwill and various others saying that the Flavian dynasty into which Josephus was adopted legally, they created Christianity as a kind of emasculated Judaism to try to pacify Jews so they'd stop rebelling violently. Because here's a Jesus who says, pay taxes to Caesar, carry the field pack of Roman soldiers, and one thing and another. They created it to say, look, here's the kind of Judaism that you Jews can espouse, but it's friendly to Rome. I find that really very unlikely, mainly because there already was a major segment of Judaism that was accommodationist, more than one. Most Pharisees and the Sadducees and all that, they were accommodationists. They collected Roman taxes in the Jerusalem temple, for Pete's sake. And so you don't really need this. And
you already have Philo. He's reforming Judaism to be more philosophically informed through Platonism and through the Greco-Roman, approval.
Yeah, and that's the whole Flavian hypothesis. It's just unnecessary, and it's clever, but I don't find it persuasive. Another interesting theory, though accepted by very few, would be that of Ralph Ellis, who claims that Josephus was the same man as Paul the Apostle. And that sounds absurd, and I don't accept it. But he points out like 20 or so correspondences between the life of Paul, mentioned or inferred from the New Testament, Acts and the epistles, on the one hand, and that of Josephus in his autobiography, and says, now, you can't tell me this is coincidence. How many guys get shipwrecked and this, that, and the other thing, and like 20 of these things. Well, that's very interesting to point out. I never noticed it, but it seems more likely to me that the author of Acts really knew nothing about Paul, and that's why, for instance, the story of the Damascus Road conversion is half borrowed from Pentheus's forced conversion in the Bacchae and Heliodorus's miraculous conversion in 2 Maccabees chapter 3. They're both so close that they really have to have been the origin. And if that's the case, that's the big thing people remember about the ostensible life of Paul, then the things that Ralph points out, though striking, fall into a different perspective. It implies that, Luke, the author of Acts, cribbed a whole lot of Paul's life from Josephus. But those are some of the ways people have tried to mark Josephus as a Christian or something allied to it. And I don't really find that persuasive. Whereas I do find the work of Stephen. Oh boy, I'm having trouble with names tonight. is a book, Josephus in the New Testament, where it points out a number of things where it sure seems like
Steve Mason. Steve Mason.
Steve Mason, yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Josephus influence on the narrative.
Yeah. I totally am convinced by Steve Mason's work about Luke being dependent on Josephus. But one of the things about what Ralph does is I think he's going out of his way to find things rather than letting them fall where they are. Because for example, I show this to Ralph. There's a pharaoh from the 24th century BCE whose name is YEHSEUS. And you know what that word means? It means that's YEHSEUS. He has a son named YEHSEUS Ankh. You know what that means? YEHSEUS lives. Literally. Jesus lives. And guess what?
Oh boy.
Guess what? He's the son of Marisonk IV, Mary.
Oh my.
And guess what?
Wow.
I'm not even joking. He has an entire cult that lasted for 400 years after his death. And I'm just pointing out to people, sometimes you think that these are parallels when they're just, I think you might be reaching a little bit.
Yeah.
I'll give you a prime example. Recently this happened. Charlie Kirk. Everyone knows what happened to Charlie Kirk. I don't got to explain what happened to Charlie Kirk. There was a movie that came out like 30 years ago with what was the name of the movie? The guy's name's Charles Kirkland. Here, I'll show you what I mean. Charles Kirkland. What was the name of the movie? Charles Kirkland movie. Anyone can tell me in the chat? Charles Kirkland. What was the name of the movie again? Oh, Snake Eyes. Okay, so let me share my screen. This is how you got to be careful for parallelomania.
I know this movie. Yeah.
So listen, this guy in this movie, there's a character named Charles Kirkland. Where is it? Charles Kirkland. And you know what happens to him in the movie? He gets assassinated by a sniper in the neck, in this left side of his neck. And then there's a patsy involved in the movie. Like, so if 2,000 years from now, some scholar might go, I don't even think the Charlie Kirk thing even happened. I think they fabricated the whole thing based on this movie of a guy named Charles Kirkland who got shot in the neck.
I would not be surprised if somehow someone's even saying it now.
Oh, they are. People are saying it now. It's a huge thing on the internet. God. So the point I'm making is sometimes you gotta be careful. And I love parallels. I'm all about parallels. But sometimes sometimes people force it too much. This person had three friends in this one scene. Therefore, this is the new Elijah, Elisha, and Jesus. Like they just force it on there. Ralph Ellis literally said that Elijah is Julius Caesar. Why? You want to know why? You want to know what his reason is? It's in his book. You want to know what his reason was? Because Elijah is called Baldy, and Julius Caesar was bald. Therefore, they're the same person.
Oh my God.
So that's enough. I'm not going to get into Ralph beat down right now, but that's just my thoughts on that. Anyways, great super chat, Narquise. I really appreciate you. The next one from Stephen Phillips. Thank you for the Canadian 5. Thanks, Neil. You're the best. Romans 9:3-5 says the Israelites are to whom belong the adoption, not going to. Yeah, this is actually a good point. Let me share this right now. Romans 9, and I was just reading Romans 9, and I should have started here. You're right, because it does say in verse 3, I wish that I myself were accursed, separated from Christ for the sake of my countrymen, my kinsmen, according to the flesh.
Right, there you go.
And he's talking about Jews, and he says, who are Israelites, to whom belongs the adoption as sons and daughters, the glory, the covenants, the giving the law, the temple service, the promises, who are the fathers, and who is the Christ according to the flesh, who is over all, God blessed forever. Amen. Then he says, but it's through the word of God, the Logos, that they are not all Israel who are descended from Israel, nor are they all children because they are Abraham's descendants. Through Isaac, descendants shall be named. That is to say, not the children of the flesh who are children of God, but the children of promise who are regarded as descendants. So anyways, But that just adds to what I just said before. So
Yeah, that's great stuff. That really ought to blow the whole Israel only thing out of the water.
yeah,
That's
I agree
a
with that.
clever thing, but I just don't think it withstands scrutiny. And it's
Yeah.
fatal that no such thing is ever explicitly stated. It's
Right.
all just inferenced by plucking a lot of passages out of context and saying, well, could they have said this if they believed what I do? Well,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's not the way to.
Yeah, you use speculation to make another speculation, and then make your final argument based on those two speculations. You can't do that. That's bad methodology. It's never going to work. Thank you for the super chat, though. Lev Polyakov in the house. Go and subscribe to Break the Rules podcast. Was there a social justice element of Christianity reacting not just to undoing Jew versus non-Jew paradigm, but also welcoming Middle Eastern migrants who became the new Roman citizens post-Caracalla? Well said. I mean, I think you know the answer to this question based on how you formed the question. Because if people might not know this, but the Edict of Caracalla, let me just pull this up, what Lev is talking about. We got another super chat too. Appreciate that.
Adnakis dropped £10 super chat. Yes. I read it will. I watched the NC movie. But I agree with you. I am just learning my history and wondering how real of a person you think Josephus was because he's considered the main reference.
Thank you for that super chat. I'll get to you in a second. Lev was talking about this right here. It's called the Constitution of Antonina. And it's the edict. It's also called the Edict of Caracalla. It's a lot easier to say. And what happened is they passed this law in the 3rd century, right? 210, I think, or right around in the early 200s, maybe 220, I think it is. 212. Okay. Before 212, full Roman citizenship. Here's an actual papyrus from 215. Before 212, full Roman citizenship was mostly only held by inhabitants of Roman Italy. And then if you want to get really technical, you would say actually it's a little bit more beyond that. They have senatorial provinces, and they have imperial provinces. The imperial provinces are like Judea, Egypt, Asia Minor, Gaul. Those are the imperial provinces. That means that they took over those provinces, and those are non-citizens that were ruling over. The senatorial provinces was like Athens and Rome, Carthage. The older regimes that were more, they spoke Latin and Greek, and they weren't barbarians to the eyes of the aristocracy. But after 212, the colonies of these, it says that too. Colonies of Romans established in the provinces, living in the provinces, the inhabitants of various cities throughout the empire.
At Bakken_Pan_Danny B's dropped $10 super chat.
Thank you, Bakken.
Paul was an Idumean. The Herodians were Idumeans. John Hyrcanus made Idumeans Yahudi 164 BCE. Acts and Paul both refer to Abraham instead of Jacob because they were not of Israel, hiding the royal blood.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that in a minute. Thank you for that. So basically what happens is they pass this law in 212. What happens? It says provinces on their hand were non-citizenships. As a result, vast numbers of newly citizenships assumed the nomen Aurelius in honor of their patron. So all these people are becoming Roman citizens, and they're getting new names, new gen names of Aurelius. That's like a royal name that was unheard of for some random Egyptian guy living in the Eastern Roman Empire to be called Aurelius. You know what I mean? So they're all being adopted into Rome. They're all becoming Roman citizens overnight. And Christianity, because of this, Christianity thrives now. Because before 212 AD, if you go to the list of popes, let me do this right now. List of popes. If we go to the list of popes, check this out, right? Peter, not a Roman citizen. Look, not a Roman citizen. The first pope is a Jew, not a Roman citizen. The second pope was a Roman citizen, first Roman pope. People actually doubt this, by the way. There are some scholars who don't think this is true. But anyways, let's keep going. Cletus, peregrinus, you know what that means? Not a Roman citizen. So Christianity is, so far, not Roman citizens are running this church. Fourth, Clement, Roman citizen. Fifth, Hellenized Jew, Rome, not a Roman citizen. That's what peregrinus means. Peregrinus means you're not a Roman citizen. Not a Roman citizen. Ready for this? Roman citizen. And then it says Greek, peregrinus, not a Roman citizen. Peregrinus, not a Roman citizen. Peregrinus, not a Roman citizen. Roman citizen. Hellenized Syrian, peregrinus, not a Roman citizen. Roman citizen. Peregrinus, not a Roman citizen. You see what's going on here? Peregrinus, not a Roman citizen. And then all of a sudden, after 212, they're all Roman citizens. You want to know why? Because that's the law now. There is no such thing as non-Roman citizen anymore. So the point I'm trying to highlight, and I think what Lev is getting at, is once Christianity goes from a religion that's run by non-Roman citizens, mostly, for the most part, not always, for the most part, and then after 212, during this crisis of the third century, you have a huge what's the word I'm looking for? You have a new advantage now, where you don't have to worry about is our religion going to be taken care of because we're not Roman citizens. Now we're all Roman citizens. Now we're all legal. You understand what I'm saying? And that's what led to Diocletian's persecutions, because they were getting too powerful as Roman citizens. So he had to persecute them in the late 3rd century. And Constantine lifts that persecution, and they gain more power over time. This is what happened. Everyone was now able to be Christian. We're all equal under the law. That's what happened. So, good question, Lev. I like that super chat.
Fascinating.
Bach and Pan Danibus, thank you for the 20. Can you go through the 2-part history I tagged you in on Facebook? It discusses how the Despasini dynasty of Jesus was systematically eliminated and their doctrines differed. Royal blood threat to the apostolic successions in Rome. I am not familiar with this at all.
The only thing I know that would fit is when one of the emperors called in a couple of hick farmers that were supposed to be blood relatives, some kind of distant cousins of Jesus, and thought, well, wait a minute, this guy is some kind of underground Messiah, king of the Jews. Could these clowns have some sort of seditious potential dynasty? And so he had them hauled in, interrogated them, and they said, well, we don't know what you're talking about, boss. And said, okay, get out of here. But that's the only thing I've ever heard to that effect. That even bears on it.
Yeah, I just pulled up where you tagged me on, and I found it. It's 130 AD, Bar Kokhba. There was the death blow to the physical presence of the Despasini in Jerusalem. That makes sense. I'm not really sure what this. I'm not familiar with this Despasini stuff. I'm not really sure what it is. Double persecution.
They were the relatives of the boss, the despot, and they were claimed blood relatives of Jesus. So they were trying to be his dynasty. And James the Just, according to a theory that I believe Adolf Harnack first proposed and Ethelbert Stauffer developed further, they believed that there were at least 2 different Jewish Christian authority groups in the very early church: the disciples of Jesus who weren't related to him, and the pillars, the guys whose names are mentioned in Mark 3, I think it is, where Jesus goes back home and said, isn't this Jesus, the carpenter? Where did he learn all this stuff? Aren't his brothers here? And it lists 4 of them. Why? Unless it's analogous to the list of disciples a little later on. And aren't his sisters here? Well, this Harnack said fits in with the way both groups are treated. Like, why does Mark have the story where Jesus is teaching a crowd and his mother and brothers and sisters come to take him in hand because they were saying he is out of his mind. And Jesus says, my mother and my brothers, you say? Well, I'll tell you who they are. My mother and brothers are those sitting here who hear the word of God and do it. And so he seems to be repudiating them. Similarly, in the Gospel of John, it makes it very clear that the brothers of Jesus think he's some sort of charlatan. Hey, don't tell me you're skipping the feast in Jerusalem. I mean, it's PR. You want the fame, don't you? I think I'll skip this one. And then who does Jesus in the same gospel commit his mother to from the cross? Not one of his brothers, who are mentioned in the same gospel, but not there. The beloved disciple takes charge, and so forth. Well, in Luke, in Acts, he says that the mother and brothers of Jesus were present among the disciples on the day of Pentecost. So they were already disciples for Luke, but they were against Jesus according to Mark and Matthew. And it represents polemics between these groups. And Harnack says also in 1 Corinthians 15, he appeared to Peter and the 12 and James and all the apostles. Well, wait a minute. Aren't the apostles the 12? Well, originally, Harnack says these must have been two different authority claims. Jesus appeared as the resurrected Savior to his brother and relatives, which gives them authority. Oh, no, said the others. Forget them. It's he appeared to Peter and his companions. And this is exactly parallel to what happened in Islam. After the Prophet Muhammad dies, you have the three companions become the caliphs. Abu Bakr, Uthman, Ali, and Umar. And then the others thought, hey, his relative Ali should be in charge. And he does become the fourth. But then he's overthrown. So what you got is the one type of Islam that looks to the relatives of the prophet, who also, interestingly, are called the pillars, just as in early Christianity, versus the Sunnis, who were led by the companions, the non-blood related disciples of Muhammad. It's exactly the same dynamic. And so it's a strong theory, I think, and probably the best argument against a completely mythical Jesus. But nonetheless, that's what's going on. The desposunoi were traveling around saying, hey, we're the relatives of Jesus. He's not available, but if you want the real truth, who would know better than us? And so that's what's going on. It's barely hidden below the surface of a number of passages.
Book is very much appreciated.
Yeah.
Much respect.
Thanks for the super chat, Anarchus.
Neil, cannot wait for your book. Smiley face emoji.
Appreciate that. Yeah, this is new to me. I didn't know. I don't know much about this. The people claiming to be relatives. I got to look into it. I would say find primary sources rather than just Googling and asking Google. That's just me personal, because I don't know if are these sources late? Is this Eusebius? I know Eusebius has a lot of these stories in his work. Maybe where do these sources come from? I'm not familiar with them at all.
Julius Africanus mentions
that's early.
The desposunoi by name.
That's third century. That's pretty early.
And he says they appeal to genealogies, presumably connecting them with Jesus. I forget who it is that speaks about the two farmers that were brought before, I don't know, was it Domitian, I think, suspicious of any possible political ambitions. I guess that's probably Eusebius. I don't know.
Yeah, I just looked it up I just asked Gemini, and there's a Hegesippus fragment through Eusebius. Of course, Eusebius is the king of having fragments that have found nowhere else, but it might be real. And then there's another Africanus also quoted by Eusebius. And then there's another one. It says in the New Testament, James the Just is the brother of Jesus. So it's basically saying if he has a lineage, it would come through there. Fair enough. I'm not saying there's no basis to this. I'm saying this is all new
it's
to me.
speculative, no question. But it seems to me that if you connect the dots, that's probably the only persuasive or likely thing, and especially given the principle of analogy. In fact, the same thing happened in Mormonism. Joseph Smith dies. Who's going to take over? His son or the first companions of Joseph Smith? They become the apostles and the church splits. What happened when Elijah Muhammad died?
Good point.
Is his son Warith Deen Muhammad taken over? Well, yeah, that's become the Nation of Islam. Or was it, but he changed everything. And so there was a split because Minister Farrakhan said, no, we're sticking with the original theology. Same thing. It happens again and again.
Yeah. Well, good point, actually. These things do happen. And if there really was, if he was a real person, then there probably were people who claim to be his descendants. Like, we're just following one thing after another. So look, this is interesting. It's something I need to look into more.
Oh, it's fascinating.
Hegesippus is an early source, so that would be interesting what he wrote. So yeah, this is definitely a great. Thank you for the super chat. I'll definitely look into this. Send me some more. I'll look into some sources on this. This is actually a cool topic.
Oh yeah.
Solera Knight, thank you for the 2. Josephus was adopted by the Flavians. Why?
Well, he was he had been a commander of the rebel forces in Galilee, and when he saw that there was no chance of winning, he went over to the Romans, which everybody despised him for, but he was doing nothing different than Jeremiah had done.
He even says that all of his companions all killed themselves, and he was last. They were all pulling stones, or like they're drawing lots to see who had to kill themselves next. And he says he was the last person. The person next to him cast the last lot, killed himself, and then he was like, you know what? I think I'm going to stay alive.
What's the point? Yeah.
Yeah. And then he turned himself in. That's what he says. That's his own autobiography.
And so, he wrote these voluminous works, the Antiquities and the Wars of the Jews, so that the defeated nation that he still loved, so that they would not be in danger of forgetting their great heritage, and to show the Romans, look, don't get the wrong idea. It's not like all Jews are fanatics who hate Rome. And in fact, Romans were fans and friends of Jews, unless there was a revolt in process, and there were 3 of them between the 1st and 2nd century. But other than that, I mean,
they were valuable,
flocking to Judaism.
They were a valuable asset to the Roman Empire because they held the eastern border intact, and they collected a lot of taxes. Josephus talked about this too. A lot of the money, a lot of the tax revenue from the Roman Empire came from Judea. They were like a gem to the Romans. They needed them. It was a big deal. There's a huge discussion on that right there. But yes, when you're in rebellion mode, it's time to squash the rebellion. That's Hadrian would say something like that.
And Josephus said it wasn't all of us. It was just these lunatics that precipitated this. Don't blame us.
Yes, exactly. And in fact, Josephus even says it was almost like more of a civil war between the Jews who didn't want to fight against Rome and the Jews that did. And so, for example, Philo's nephew, Tiberius Julius Alexander, half Jewish, half Greek, half, he lives in Egypt. He's a half Jew, right? And he's there sacking the Jerusalem temple on the side of Titus. He's killing his own people.
Yeah.
So I think you need to realize the nuances when we talk about these time periods. Anyways, thank you for that super chat. Narkis is back with a $10. Yes, I read At Will. I watched the NC movie, but I agree with you. I am just learning my history and wondering how real of a person you think Josephus was, because he's considered the main reference.
Well, I think the problem is not what we know about him, but what did he know about the early Christians? and there's so little reference to them, if any. In the disputed Testimonium Flavianum, he says that Jesus accordingly was the Christ, and it's after him that the tribe of Christians gets their name. But he doesn't really say anything else about him that I know of, except the thing with James being stoned to death by his rivals in the temple. But as Richard Carrier argues pretty persuasively to me, they're not talking about the James and Jesus of the New Testament, because other sources tell us that the guy that was stoned to death by the conspirators was James, son of Damnaeus. What a name! And once the new Roman procurator was told about this, he canned Annas, who became the outlaw high priest, and replaced him with Jesus, son of Damnaeus, James's brother. And it doesn't have anything to do with Jesus Christ and James the Just. I think Richard's right on that one. And so, I mean, he says nothing about Jesus or Paul. But everybody loves him because he gives us so much information about what was going on between the Old and New Testaments in unbelievable detail.
Oh yeah, we didn't have if we lost Josephus, there's a lot of information we wouldn't know about. Like he talked about the Essenes, and the difference between the Essenes and the Sadducees and the
fourth philosophy
and the Pharisees. Yeah. And so we barely get a description of those groups outside of Josephus. The New Testament's obviously super biased and treats them as like completely off than what they actually are. We get a little bit of description in Philo about who the Essenes are and who the Pharisees are, but Josephus gives us such a detailed description about these groups. We would have no idea. We'd be just guessing off the archaeology and what the New Testament says. So he's actually a very valuable source for a lot of the stuff we get. Especially first century Judea. So I think the farther you go back, the more his history starts to fall apart. Like when he's talking about like Adam and Eve and Noah, and he's like, we still to this very day, Noah's Ark is still seen on the mountain Armenia. Like, okay, dude, all right, chill out. You're full of shit, bro.
Well, I've just watched the 10 Commandments again the other night.
So did I. I just watched that movie 2 nights ago.
Yeah, and that we owe a lot to Josephus.
Yeah,
the idea that Moses was a military commander.
They open up the film and say, most of this stuff we get not from Genesis, but from Philo and Josephus. Yeah, and I was like, oh shit, that's cool.
And 3 novels about Moses. I'd love to read them. I never have, but I'd love to.
Philo wrote The Life of Moses. He literally wrote a Life of Moses book. Philo wrote this.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's fascinating.
But yeah, Josephus is another one. Huge deal. So, anyways, thank you for that super chat. Bach and Pan Danebius is back in the house. Paul was an Idumean. The Herodians were Idumeans. John Hyrcanus made Idumeans Yahudi in 164 BCE. Acts and Paul both refer to Abraham instead of Jacob because they were not of Israel, hiding the royal blood.
Well, that could be because I think Jonathan Adler, The Origins of Judaism or something, he makes this amazing case that Israel was based, or Judea was created by John Hyrcanus by uniting the various groups that are bingo, a great book. That he took all these groups like the Midianites, the Edomites, the Ammonites, and all that, and forced them to convert to Judaism. And that in all of our evidence, we read nothing about circumcision, Passover, all kinds of stuff. from earlier Jewish records, implying none of this was on the books at the time. And
Yeah.
I had already come to think that even Russell Gamirkin was too optimistic about the antiquity of the Pentateuch, and that came about in Hasmonean times. And that dovetails perfectly with this, that they created it as a kind of common unity platform for all these people that had now become Jews.
Yes.
And I think he's right. And yeah, go ahead.
But here's the thing, I'm going to jump in real quick. There is a problem. We got to, like, genetics, DNA studies have now opened up all, like, what haplogroups are and stuff like that. The people who were considered to be Idumeans versus the people who were considered to be Judeans are not even that far genetically off from each other. They already were, like, so close. They're living right next to each other.
The Bible itself says this.
It would be like saying the Greeks, the Athenians, and the Spartans are completely separate races from different bloodlines. It's like, no,
that's ridiculous. Yeah, and this would be too.
It's just like it's like comparing Spartans to Athenians. Idumeans and Judeans are, and they all share the J haplogroup. They're all from the same haplogroup, J. So they're not. So even after this all happened, there isn't like some big difference between Idumeans and Judeans. They're all Jews at this point. They're all just they're all becoming the same. It's all the same thing.
The big issue there, if there is one, is what Robert Eisenman says, that Paul was a Herodian, and the Herodians had prominent Idumean or Edomite roots. But as you say, what the heck, who cares? But the problem is, if Paul is somehow close to the Herodians, that apparently puts him in a shadow, though I don't see what the big deal is.
After 165 years gone by, well, actually it's more than that. So the Maccabean period when this all happens is 164 BCE, and the New Testament at the end of the 1st century AD. So we're talking 250 years plus has gone by of this cultural mixing, and they're indistinguishable at that point. You have no idea who's an Idumean versus who's a Judean after 200 years. They're all mixed at that point. It's the same people at that. They're all Jews at that point. They're all calling themselves Jews at that point.
Yeah. This stuff, it's amazing how, as history goes on, you would swear that everything has been settled and discovered. Well, no, not really.
Right.
Big things are still in the offing. And I just can't believe the stuff that I read as of 1982. I remember, because it was when Ghostbusters came out. I was reading Wellhausen and Kuhn and all these guys, the classic higher critics from the 19th and early 20th century. And I thought, the JEDP and all that stuff. Little did I know how astonishing the other discoveries, like of Russell Gamirkin, for instance, would change the whole thing. It's unbelievable. And who knows what's next?
Yeah, and so Philippians 3:5, for example. I mean, Paul, whether you want to call it what you want to say, oh, he's an Idumean, he's an Edomite, he's this and that. It's like, dude, go to Philippians, go to 3. And look what he just said. He's literally, it doesn't matter what he is, like, he still considers himself, I'm from the nation, I'm circumcised on this is what he says. I have been circumcised on the 8th day of the nation of Israel, of the tribe of Benjamin, a Hebrew of Hebrews, a Pharisee. You know what I mean? He calls himself a Jew multiple times throughout his works too. So
and none of that is affected by how you got to the people known as Jews at the time.
Yes,
he's not saying I'm a Bantu or something. I mean, it's funny how people just mix these fairly obvious things up.
Yeah, no, I understand why people are into are fascinated by these nuances, though. There's definitely something to a discussion about this that should be had. Thank you for that super chat. Narkis with another 10 says, P.S. I'm from Moldova, a country I doubt you ever heard of.
Oh,
actually,
no.
I have. As an Orthodox, J.W. Offspring, your work is very much appreciated. Much respect to Dr. Price. Neil, cannot wait for your book.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, yeah. Believe it or not, most people in America know where Moldova is.
Oh yeah, the old Moldavia.
Yeah, I mean it was part of the Roman Empire for most of the Roman Empire's existence, especially the Byzantine Empire too, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
The Black Sea coast over there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's more known than you probably think. But thank you for that super chat. Appreciate that. And I really appreciate you waiting for my book. I'll try to get it out as soon as possible, but it's going to be a little bit. So maybe a month or so, 2 months or something like that. But it's coming. It's coming along. It's coming along. Well. So thank you for that super chat. We have one more from Solera Knight. Thank you for the $2. Who was the teacher of righteousness?
Oh boy.
Dead Sea Scrolls.
Well, I'm fascinated by the theories of Barbara Thiering, who revived, I think, G.R. Driver's theory that the teacher of righteousness was John the Baptist, and the theory of Robert Eisenman that the teacher was James the Just. Both of them make pretty good arguments, but since the scrolls are written in cipher language, we don't really know who's who. But I think you can make a very strong case for, especially for John the Baptist, and followed by James the Just. Because there's this thing with Simon Magus that there was a 30-man sect of John the Baptist, and among the 30 were Simon Magus and Dositheus of Samaria, and Jesus too, apparently. And
the
so
Simonians came out of John the Baptist's sect, not from Jesus. That's the argument.
Mm-hmm.
Which is very fascinating.
Oh man, yeah, I just really one book after another completely opens my mind up, and I'm back to the laboratory again.
Yeah, I agree. Teacher. So if you look at their Wikipedia page, they go through all the different theories. So Jerome Murphy Connor thinks is a figure from the 1st or 2nd century BC. Maccabean period. I mean, that's possible. I don't know what
could be.
Other scholars say 1st century BC figure. James Tabor points out is Jesus, maybe Jesus, a Yeshua from the Essene community. That's interesting. Hyrcanus
I
II.
didn't know anybody still argued that. That's interesting.
Yeah, I think that's from James Tabor. Then you have Hyrcanus II. And then you have Sadducees, Hillel. Everyone knows about Hillel the Elder.
Oh, yeah.
Score Danny B's dropped $50.
Ooh.
Benjamin just went to oversee Yehudi.
$50.
Whoa.
The battle between Herodians and Israelite nationalism was about cleansing the temple. New Covenant was all about following the prophet's law.
No animal sacrifice. Yeah. Let me finish this thought up. I'm coming to you right after. I appreciate you so freaking much, Bakken. You are a great friend. Appreciate you. But the point I'm trying to make, just to finish this off right now, is you have all these theories. James, Judah, John the Baptist, as you point out, Barbara Thiering, you mentioned that. That's one of the main theories. And then, there's just so many different theories. And look, they all make sense.
That's the problem.
The point is, we know for sure someone physically wrote down on a 1st century BC or 1st century AD physical papyrus that there was a guy called the teacher of righteousness. That's what we know for sure. The question of who it is, it takes a little bit more. You got to look into the data and make your arguments. But we know someone with a teacher. There is someone called teacher of righteousness. That's not made up from late. That's not from Eusebius or something.
Right.
So, anyways, Bakken Pan, thank you for the 50. Benjamite just means oversee Yehudi. Also, son of Ben, does that? No, I don't know about that. Also, because the argument is there's 2 tribes that came back during they were in captivity for 70 years, and then 10 tribes scattered abroad, and then after that, 2 tribes came back, Benjamin and Judah. So Benjamin and Judah are Jews that survived the 70-year dispersion. That's my understanding.
No,
So I
I
don't know.
think the so-called 10 lost tribes were the exiles from Samaria, the old northern kingdom, and that we don't know if any of them ever came back or how many of them were displaced, because it's all
Right.
kind of blown up. But that Judah and Benjamin were part of Judea in the south, and
Yes.
they when in 586, when Nebuchadnezzar defeated them and destroyed Jerusalem and the temple, he took away the priesthood and the aristocracy, but not the common people who continued to worship at the ruins of the temple. And they were the ones that that didn't get along with the imperious attitude of the exilarchs, the Jewish leaders that came back from Babylon, and that created this
huge. You can see it. You can see right here. Benjamin is Jerusalem and Jericho, and then Judah is the greater area that surrounds the south and all that stuff. So these are the two tribes that run Jerusalem. Benjamin's not some place in number. I don't know where you got that. I would love to see where you got that from. That Benjamin means overseas. I've never heard that before. From my understanding, is Benjamin is
sons of the left hand.
Ben-Yamin? Yeah, Ben-Yamin. Is that what it means?
Meaning the south, the sons of the south.
Yeah, because Ben does mean son, and then Yamin, does that mean south?
I think so, or the left. What would it be? The left hand or the right hand? I forget, but denoting south, whichever one it was.
Yeah. Benjamin, son of right hand. Yeah, Yah means right. It's right. Yah means right.
Yeah, okay. There we go.
So son of the right hand and south, it says. So yeah, this to me it's pretty clear. Benjamin is one of the two tribes that is from Jerusalem.
Yeah.
That's what it means. And that's why he says I'm a Hebrew of Hebrews and all this stuff. Now, Benjamin is Bela. I'm not sure what you meant by that. Let me see if you're in the comments right now. No, I don't see you in the Yeshua, the righteousness one, 1 John. Anyways, the king of Edom, the battle between the Herodians and Israelite nationalism was about cleansing the temple. New covenant was all about following the prophet's law, no animal sacrifice. Look, I don't know. I mean, how much do we know about what was going on between Edomites and people who actually thought that they were pure Israelite blood? Because how would you even, I mean, how do you even determine that after hundreds of years have gone by? Like right now, people who live in America are all like, we're 25% German, 25% Polish, 25% Italian. We're all a bunch of mixing of things, but we're all American. I would imagine something similar to that was going on in Israel, especially the 1st century AD, 200 years after the Maccabees conquered the entire region. And now you have, they're all Jews at this point. They're all state religion, which is Judaism, and they're all following it. So the question is, how do we get to this? How do we determine who's fighting for the side of the Edomite side, who's determining the side of the Jerusalem? You know what I mean?
Yeah, was that even an issue anymore?
Yeah, I don't know if it would be. I think they all, like even Herod, who we know is an Edomite, Herod we know is from an Edomite line of kings, or royalty, I should say. Also tracing back to one of the last Hasmonean kings as well. So he does, it is what it is. But the point I'm trying to make is does he consider himself Edomite before he's Jew? No. He seems to be someone who really, he's a Jew. He thinks himself as a Jew. He literally built the tomb of Abraham during his reign. He rebuilt the second temple. He built up the temple to its glory. Herod's, the Herodian aspect of the temple. Like he finished the temple. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know how much you would say he's a nationalist for the Edomite side. But
Yeah, I'd be surprised if they really even had a self-concept of being other than Jews.
yeah, that's what I think. I think after the Maccabean period, they all became Jews, and they
Yeah.
all wanted it. They all wanted to have that unification. They all wanted that. I think they did a good job of incorporating the Galilee and Edom into the kingdom of Israel, or Judea, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
Because at that point, they're known as the province of Judea in the Roman Empire. So Israel is like a place in for it.
This has come up again in recent times, like in Shlomo Sand's book, the Invention of the People of Israel or something. And he says genetic tests have shown that there is no primordial Semitic genome or whatever, that these people, that Judaism was at one point a great missionary religion, which is how the now famous Khazars were incorporated into Judaism. And so this seems to be used as a way of saying, look, they don't have any right that anybody else doesn't have to the Holy Land. They claim it was their ancestral land, but it wasn't. It was nobody's. Well, what they're not recognizing is that even in the Bible, even in the Old Testament, the point is made very clearly, especially in Ruth, that it's written against the sort of bigoted attitude of Ezra and Nehemiah, where they said, "Oh, you're not a Jew by our definition. Well, your wife is not. We'll kick her out and marry a real Jew." Like Ruth is written against that and saying, "Well, Ruth was an Edomite, and yet she's one of the ancestors of King David. You're going to reject him?" And
you ready for this?
So the point is,
sorry, go ahead.
It's just that Judaism has always been open to converts. It's never been simple geneticism.
You're right. It was especially the farther back, especially when you get to the first century. Right now, rabbinic Judaism is not much of a evangelical. They're not going out and spreading the word. You don't find like evangelists on the corner with signs for Judaism.
Right.
That's
they
modern
used to
Judaism.
be, but not anymore.
That's what I'm saying. In the first century, you would find people trying to convert you to Judaism.
Like
that was
Matthew
the thing.
23. You scour land and sea to make one convert. Well, that obviously means there was a.
What passage is that again?
It's in Matthew 23.
Matthew 23.
When you get a convert, you make him twice the hell spawn you are. Nasty stuff, but nonetheless, it attests a widespread Jewish missionary and plenty of other data. And Shlomo Sands is good showing that there was a huge missionary expansion of Judaism in the early AD centuries.
Do you know what passage exactly it is?
In
Matthew 23.
Oh, I can find it pretty quick.
I can do a word search for the word convert. Oh, I'm not getting it.
I'll have it in skipped it. Matthew 22, 23. Yeah, okay. It's Matthew 23, 19. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you travel across sea and land to make a single proselyte. And when he becomes a proselyte, you make him twice as much a child of hell as yourselves. Yikes.
Oh, down here, 23. Okay. Yeah. Neglected the provision. Wait, wait, are you in 22 or 23?
23. Verse
23, 19. What verse? Verse 19?
Oh, no, wait a minute. The numbers are so tiny. 15, darn it. Chapter 23, verse 15.
Oh, here we go. What do you scribes and Pharisees? Because you travel around and make one proselyte. There you go. This is what I mean about undeniable data. This is an unbiased source. Because they're actually talking about them going out and proselytizing.
Yeah, I mean,
they're saying that the Pharisees do this. Yes. So that's what I mean. So Judaism is definitely a conversion religion early on. Not only that,
Yeah.
I wanted to show Josephus in Antiquities, and let me just put you. Or I can keep walking on for a second because I can just zoom in. So this is from Antiquities. Let me just move down, and it says, "How do I get rid of this tools thing?" All right, whatever. It says right here, Cyrus, when he wandered the divine power, was seized by a strong desire and ambition to do what had been written, summoning the most distinguished of the Jews in Babylon. He told them he gave them leave to journey to their native land to rebuild both the city of Jerusalem and the temple of God. For God, he said, would be their ally, and he himself would write his own governors and satraps who were in the neighborhood of their country and give the contributions of gold and silver to the building of the temple. When Cyrus had made this announcement to the Israelites, this is what I mean right here. The leaders of two tribes, Judah and Benjamin, and the Levites, who were the priestly Sadducees, the priests, set out to Jerusalem. But many remained in Babylon, being unwilling to leave their possessions. On the Israelites' arrival, all the king's friends helped them and brought their share to the construction of the temple. So Josephus is literally telling us that only two tribes, besides the priestly Levites, returned to Jerusalem. And that's Benjamin and Judah. So being from the tribe of Benjamin, that makes you one of the original OGs. To me, that's what I'm seeing. Mm-hmm. I would love to see Bakken, if you can, when you reach out to me in private DMs, some of the stuff you're looking at, some of the sources you're looking at, to think that, just to see what you're looking at. I'm very fascinated with with the stuff that you're looking at, and there's always something behind what you're doing. That's what I'm saying. So
I'm going to have to get going.
But this is an amazing topic, by the way. I'm just having fun just looking into this stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, and the no animal sacrifice thing. I would even say that might even, because I've recently heard some Christians make the case is because of Jesus, that after Jesus got killed, the Jews stopped having animal sacrifice. That's so nonsense. They kept it until 70
years later.
Yeah, 70 AD is when they stopped because they lost their temple. It had nothing to do with Jesus. It's because they lost the temple. Duh. But anyways, the point I was going to say was, I think there was anti-sacrifice messaging happening in the Hellenized Jewish circles with Philo, because Philo talks about spiritual sacrifices, how the temple is just physical, but the real temple is the spiritual one in heaven. Mm-hmm. So you get this idea of sacrifice not being necessary early on, even before the temple is destroyed. So,
well, I got to get going. I'm pretty well tuckered out, but this has been enormously enlightening and fun.
Yeah, like this is perfect timing. Actually, this is right when I was going to close out. And anything else? Anything else you're working on, or where people could find you?
Well, I'm I've just been recording a bunch of my books and for Pitchstone Press, so they're available as audio books. And so far, at least the Needle Toe Letters and Merely Christianity are available. Maybe some of the others, because I've recorded several. And I'm about to do an audio recording of a book that is also about to come out in print from them, called Not Peace, but a Sword, which suggests that maybe the early Christians were not pacifists, and though this is kind of old now, that perhaps neither was Jesus.
Wow, I'm looking forward to hearing that. And by the way, the link for your website where you can donate and join your Patreon is in the description.
Oh, thanks.
It is robertmprice.mindvendor.com, and it's in the links in the description. Go and check that out. And that's it for tonight. And you have just attained true gnosis.
We are.
Son, do you want